Did WWE screw over two indie shows? A controversial TNA star is gone from the promotion. My review of a great NXT with an awesome main event, and more. I'm Luke Owen, and this is the WrestleTalk News.
Support WrestleTalk!
Give us a subscribe.
This Saturday is a monumental episode of WWE television, as John Cena is having his final wrestling match when he faces Gunther. Cena himself has said the original plan for this Saturday night's main event was to be a celebration of his career, but he wanted to make it full of exhibition matches between main roster and NXT stars to show what will come after him. So on top of Gunther versus Cena, we're getting Bayley versus Sol Ruka, WWE champion Cody Rhodes versus NXT champion Obafemi, and AJ Styles and Dragon Lee versus Siobhan Evans and TNA X Division champion Leon Slater. Slater is a big deal. He's only 21. I was told a few years ago by a British wrestling promoter who was booking him as a teenager that he's going to be the biggest deal in wrestling in the near future. And he was correct, as 2025 has been a big year for the lad. He became the youngest ever X Division champion, he's been on NXT TV more than some regular NXT talents, and he's had a big rise in Revolution Pro Wrestling here in the UK, where he beat Michael Oku in the summer and was heading for a British Heavyweight Championship match against Shah Samuels. The problem was that match was supposed to happen this weekend in Cardiff, and this weekend also happens to be Saturday night's main event. Rev Pro announced that the triple threat for the title will now be a singles match between Samuels and Jay Joshua. Slater was also scheduled to be on WXW's 25th anniversary show, but was pulled from that event. They told Fightful Select before the tag match was announced for Saturday night's main event it was due to scheduling issues. Fightful Select have dug more into this and are now reporting that WXW had booked Slater for that show appearance as far back as March of this year, and have been working around his TNA dates to make sure that nothing clashes. Following the match announcement on Monday, Fightful Select followed up with WXW to get their reaction, and right, it was noted to us that it's kind of what the promotion expected, but would have preferred to have WWE give them a heads up about the appearance rather than putting Slater in an unfortunate situation, as the promotion viewed this coming weekend as one of their biggest shows of the year. Fightful Select also reached out to Rev Pro, but got no comment back. Now, let's be honest, you can't really blame Leon Slater for making the choice that he did. He is in a featured match on John Cena's retirement show. It sucks for the European indie shows, both of which were big shows, one of which was the culmination of a story they've been telling for the majority of the year. But this was an opportunity for Slater, just 21 years old, to be part of John Cena's final match, which is likely going to be one of the more viewed Saturday night's main events of the modern era. TNA representatives told Fightful Select that Slater working the show was another example of the good relationship between WWE and TNA. But it is also another example of how WWE will always see themselves as number one. Not giving WXW the heads up is a bit of a dick move. It's also an example of TNA probably not seeing what's ahead of them, as Fightful Select report that Slater's deal with TNA is up in late 2026. I said on the WrestleTalk News earlier this year that after he was featured on NXT more than a few times, he was 100% going down the Joe Hendry, Jordan Grace route. Make no mistake about it, Leon Slater is WWE bound by this time next year. Speaking of TNA deals, and a few eagle-eyed internet types noticed that Masha Slamovich's profile had been removed from TNA's website on December 9th. And Fightful Select are now reporting that she is officially gone from the company. And not recently either, as they report her deal was up back in October. Now, back in September, it was reported by Sports Illustrated that TNA were opening up an internal investigation into Masha Slamovich after allegations came out against her over verbal, physical, and mental abuse of her ex-partner Akira. She was pulled from appearances with Prestige Wrestling, Metroplex, and West Coast Pro. Slamovich apologized for her actions, saying they were in a mutually destructive relationship. She was set to face Ash by Elegance for the Knockouts Championship, but was pulled from that match and has not wrestled for TNA since, and has also been gone from the public eye. Speaking of disappearing from the face of the wrestling planet, and does anyone remember Travis Scott? It is wild to think, but Scott was a featured part of the closing of Elimination Chamber when John Cena turned heel, and was even involved in the main event of WrestleMania 41, where he helped John Cena win his record-breaking 17th title win. As Santi Zap noted in his TLC appearance on this very channel, the official celebration card for Cena's title win was him and Travis Scott. And let's not forget, he was on the Netflix debut smoking weed while partying with Jey Uso, and was featured in WWE Unreal, saying he wanted to work with WWE full time. Following WrestleMania, Dave Meltzer reported that Scott would tag with Cena at Money in the Bank, which was then changed to a 6-man tag with Logan Paul to take on Cody Rhodes and the Usos. In the end, it wound up being Cena and Paul versus Cody and Jay, with zero mention of Travis Scott. Scott was also rumored to be part of a DLC pack for WWE 2K25, which was also pulled, and he's not been mentioned since. It was reported that something broke down along the way. I'd been told very third-hand info that his training at Booker T's Reality of Wrestling was not going well, which I passed off as hearsay, but now Logan Paul has said on his Impulsive podcast that wrestling is a lot about navigating pain. It hurts, and I think at some point, Travis probably realized it's pretty hard. He confirms Meltzer's report that they were supposed to have the 6-man tag, but says the day it was supposed to be announced, he didn't show up. He adds, I think what happened is, my guess, he probably realized at some point that it's really physically demanding, really hard, and a lot of work. It's probably too much commitment for someone who is a rock star of his caliber. Like, Bad Bunny loves it, and he put in the time and became a good wrestler. Speaking of good wrestling, and it's now time for my review of this week's NXT, which opened with the new NXT champion Oba Femi coming out to cut a promo on Cody Rhodes ahead of their match this weekend. I said on yesterday's WrestleTalk podcast that I was surprised that WWE didn't do anything to promote these matches on Raw outside of match graphics and showing the NXT guys and girls in the crowd, but the comments shot me down, saying, they're non-canon exhibition matches, therefore you don't need a promo or angle. But I'd argue this was a really good use of TV time, as it got me more hyped for the match that I was already quite hyped for, as did Oba's second promo on Cody Rhodes later in the show. I really think this should have been on Raw as well as here on NXT. Former champ Ricky Saints came out with Vic Joseph noting he didn't have his usual swagger and said that at 1-on-1 he wanted a rematch for the title. Men's Iron Survivor winner Javon Evans came out to get his shot early, and Saints tried to little brother him with advice, but Evans did not take that advice and suggested to Oba they do their New Year's Evil title match here tonight instead. Oba accepted this match, and I loved all of this. Tatum Paxley cut a promo saying she was going to remove all of the culling before getting her hands on Izzy Dame again, and Kalani Jordan beat Jordan Grace in a really decent match. They both tried to use a chair to risk DQ, but Kalani used a referee distraction to knock Grace into the barricade and hit the 450 for the win. All the NXT women stood in a row in the locker room backstage, and Thea Hale tried to offer Jordan Grace advice, which she turned down because Hale is a teenager. Hale then answered Blake Monroe's open challenge for the North American Championship, but she was not alone, as the entire women's locker room also answered. But this meant that when Blake was tapping to the Kimura, there was no referee to officially start the match. They just said, well, that's not happening anymore. I thought this was quite terrible and pretty clunky, and it just sets up a match next week between Monroe and Hale. Next week we'll also see the other 4 Iron Survivor competitors in a 4-way where the winner will get Siobhan Evans' shot at New Year's Evil. Shiloh Hill beat Lexus King in his NXT debut match, and I think he's probably good enough to overcome his pretty gimmick. Ethan Page cut a great promo before being attacked by Tony D'Angelo, despite Tony D'Angelo laying out Siobhan Evans and staring down Oba Femi at the end of Deadline, and Sol Rooker beat Ren Sinclair, then chased after Zarya to ask her to be in her corner for the match against Bayley this Saturday. I smell an angle, player. Fatal Influence came out with JC Jane cutting a superb promo on Kendall Gray, calling her the flavor of the month, and Gray responded by saying no one expected her to win Iron Survivor, just as no one expected JC Jane to beat Stephanie Vaquer for the NXT Women's Championship. They had a brawl with Fatal Influence standing tall, and I enjoyed all of this. Hank and Tank set up a match with OTM for next week, and the main event saw Javon Evans have his title match against Oba Femi, and let me tell you, these two had a awesome match. Easily one of the best NXT main events in 2025. I'm not the first person to say this, but these two guys should not be here in developmental. Bring them both up to the main roster, push them, belt them up. You keep saying they're not the future, they're the now, then make them the now. And don't give me the age thing in the comments. I was watching King of the Ring 2001 for a podcast that Ollie and I are doing, and X-Pac's on that show facing Jeff Hardy for the Light Heavyweight Championship. Jeff was 24 at the time. Think about all he'd accomplished in 1999 and 2000 and how huge of a star he was, and he was 24. X-Pac, who'd been the 1-2-3 kid, beating Razor Ramon on Raw, gone to WCW as 6 in the NWO, got fired by FedEx, returned to the WWF and joined D-Generation X with Triple H and the New Age Outlaws, had several WrestleMania matches along with an awesome feud with Kane, and was now the leader of his own faction, was 29 years old. Oba Femi is only 2 years younger now than X-Pac was back then. push these guys now. If you have not already, please go out of your way to watch this match. It was so good. Not only was it an awesome match, it had an awesome finish, as Evans had the match won, but then the referee was pulled out of the ring by Ricky Saints. It was shot so well, as Saints came out of nowhere, which made the pull even more shocking. It allowed Obafemi to hit the fall from grace to get the win. This was so awesome. An awesome match, an awesome angle, and it closed out a great show. Not everything worked, but the stuff that did was superb. It is WWE's best weekly show. And speaking of our best weekly show, go and check out Ollie and I's review of this week's Monday Night Raw on the WrestleTalk podcast, where we went through our prediction for Saturday night's main event and the retirement of John Cena.